It's the East County Friday football review for Week 8. I'm Ramon Scott, joined by Adam Paul of ECPreps. Adam, we had some great games. Some teams are starting to heat up for the playoffs, and some teams are starting to feel the heat as we wind down out of getting into some colder weather. Certainly, the games are getting exciting. 3 weeks left. We're going to talk about some of these games from Friday night. There was one that I don't know. We've talked about some other games, about the game of the year so far in the previous couple of weeks, but
Sure.
was this the game of the year, brother? I know one thing, and I'll let you describe it, but I'm going to say this. If this wasn't the game of the year, it certainly had the play of the year. There's no way that touchdown by Jamie Odom was not. So far, maybe something else will happen. That was the East County play of the year so far.
Oh yeah. I mean, he didn't have any receivers, and still 5 minutes to go in the game, um, and he held on to it and ran and rumbled and stumbled and literally stumbled a couple times. Um, Shifted around the Granite Hills Eagles defenders, and zipped his way to the end zone for what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. I mean, like you said, it literally, as of right now, unless there's something different that we haven't seen, that's the play of the year. I mean, 33-32 was the final score. Grossmont spoiling Granite Hills' homecoming night. I mean, what more can you ask for? I mean, that's a huge win for the Foothillers, setting up their showdown on Friday night. Granite 0-2 in league now. I didn't see that one coming. To be honest with you, I was talking to Christian Pedersen on Friday night. He was saying, that it wasn't would you say it wasn't a bad loss? And I was like, you know what? I'm usually not one for moral victories per se, or bad losses, whatever that means. But Coach Cobbs can rally the troops for this week, as they go out to Lakeside to take on the Vaqueros on their homecoming, of all things. And he can say, you know what, it's a learning experience.
Fair enough. I don't think that Granite Hills can hang their head over that defeat. I think you're saying it's a bad loss in the fact that if Granite Hills knew they were going to have any type of chance to win this league title, that they had to get back on track and beat a team like Grossmont that they certainly consider probably on equal footing. You look at the result. Grossmont was slightly favored, I think, by our account heading into the game. Granite Hills played terrific. They played awesome. They were winning that game. They only lost by 1 point. Grossmont, as it turns out, look, Adam, they've moved up again this week in the media poll. So we're talking about one of the top 6 or 7 ball clubs in the entire county right now. Grossmont really on a high as far as really, it's funny. Grossmont's done a lot of great things in its history. They're ranked pretty darn high right now going into this big game against Helix. Maybe we'll talk about it more in a second. We can talk about all of the history of that series and what's going on right now. Granite Hills, I mean, they played great against one of the top teams in the county with a great record that's heading for a top seed in Division I. Great job, Jamie Odom, play of the year, the 46-yard scramble. Adam, it was 4th and 2 on that play, so that was the big deal. And don't forget Robert Tucker. He had the big game right now, Adam. Robert Tucker, he's the second best running back in the East County. And this Friday, he might be the best running back in the East County on the football field, depending on the status of El Elyon Noah. But anyways, Adam, a great job. We're talking about Grossmont and Granite Hills here, so I won't get off track yet. I can ask you about that game later, but great job. Sapberry, the big play, homecoming king, interception return. I'm not selling these Eagles short. They're going to get their victories. They can do something in the playoffs. This is just Grossmont right now. We can't talk them up enough, and they came up clutch.
Yeah, Granite Hills kind of had the reputation, excuse me, of coming out flat in the big games the last couple years. Um, and it sounds, obviously I wasn't there, but just from following along on social media and everything, it sounds like they came out punching and what was leading this game for quite a bit. It sounds like because, like I said, the Eagles last couple of years have had the reputation of coming out flat and not taking advantage of the opportunities when given to them. Um, and sounds like they did, but unfortunately, the great Jamie Odom, who's been that field general all year long for the Foothillers, made the play, came up big and made the play and stepped up when needed. Like you said, 4th and 2. There were still about 5 minutes to go in that contest. So the defense for the Foothillers came up huge. You're talking about Robert Tucker. He had 364 all-purpose yards with 193 yards rushing, including touchdowns of 67, 13, and 55 yards. Grossmont piled up 452 total yards of offense. He also had 52 yards receiving and 119 yards on 2 kick returns. Odom,
don't forget that 82-yard kick return, right?
Yeah, Odom, wasn't quite the Jamie Odom night, through the air, which is all right. He had 132 yards passing and rushed 9 times for 118 and 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning. They have it listed as 54 yards on 4th down. Defense. Chris Alba, Caden Mata each recorded 14 tackles.
Wow.
And Joe Rosas added 10. Plus, he blocked the all-important point after touchdown against the Eagles. So obviously, it was a very exciting game, and from all intents and purposes, from what I've heard, it was a packed house. Granite always, their alumni always come out on homecoming night. Like you said, Jeremiah Satbury was the homecoming king. He had a 62-yard interception return. Justice McComb played really well, 24-38, 267 yards.
Great game.
I mean, what can you ask? I mean, it just came down to who made the play, who was going to make that last play. And it turned out it was Grossmont. And the defense came up big the last 5 minutes of that contest.
Well, maybe that's something, we've wanted to see sometimes in years past, is big plays from the Grossmont defense. And they had them. I will give more credit, though, to the Eagles. I want to certainly hype them up. They're 0-2 right now in league, and unfortunately that loss was key. But, we said we wanted to see maybe a little bit more production from the backfield. And Junie Harris, who we really haven't talked about that much this year, he came up with 2 touchdowns. Kevon Martin, I think he just had like 1 or 2 carries, a short touchdown run, however. And so Granite Hills did a great job. Don't want to sell them short on this game. I just want to say that Grossmont is in position next week to make history.
No, Granite Hills, 0-2 in league, but you know what? Those are 2 tough losses to Steel Canyon and now Grossmont. They're going to be one of the top teams in the Division I playoffs when it's all said and done. They're battle tested for the playoffs. They've made the semis the last couple years. Granted, it's been with a more experienced quarterback, but you know what? Justice McComb, he's ready to go for the playoffs to lead these Eagles however far they want to go this year.
Oh, for sure. And I can't wait to see what he does next year. I mean, I'm certainly interested to see what happens in the Division I playoffs, but we're talking about a guy right now. Obviously, he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the county next year. We're talking about Justice McComb.
Yes, most definitely. He's matured very well this year, both throwing and running, having no varsity experience. Um, that was the question going into the season this year for the Eagles. Um, and he's stepped up big time, and the players around him, Junie Harris, uh, excuse me, Satbury, they've all stepped up. It's a team game over there. The team motto over there. Um, Coach Cobbs, he does a phenomenal job over there at Granite. And like I said, they're going to be a real dangerous team in those Division One playoffs coming up.
Yeah, just I think the thing that they're shooting for right now is to get that home game in the first round. They're real close on it right now. We don't know how the official rankings is going to come out tomorrow. They might have fallen a spot to be just right out, but I think they can. They got a tough game left certainly, but they have another game they can win, so they're going to be right there. Number 12, number 13, somewhere in there it looks like. So they really got to get that first round home game. That's going to be key, and they can do it. Certainly go on the road and earn a victory maybe against El Capitan this week. So maybe we talk about Grossmont and Helix when we talk about Helix, Adam, and we could just keep on moving on here. 10 minutes on that featured game, and that was well worth it. I can't get over that Jamie Odom play, man.
Oh, it was great, man. I was watching when I was at the Santana. Matt Gilson and Chase Osborne, they showed it to me, and I was like, "Holy cow, what a run!" Yeah, it was just amazing.
Every reason to fall down, Jamie, on that play, your bum knee at that 40-yard line stumble, and for you to keep your balance and then hit the burners again to take off on those guys against a good Granite Hills defense. I couldn't believe it. I know that those Granite Hills secondary guys and line whoever were chasing them down are just beside themselves. They couldn't wrap him up anywhere. At least give him a chance to stop him again. Get him down inside the 10 where he kind of took some more grabs from some other guys. They kept trying to reach for him, but oh boy, I wish I knew how to show highlights on this thing. Everyone's seen it, but all right, I'm working on that. All right, Adam. Hey, I saw the new poll came out this week for the media. This is last week's ratings, but look at Santana now. They won this game in the great honorable Mayor's Cup game, 27-13. Adam over West Hills. Great job by both teams, huh, Adam?
Yeah, you know what? It was an exciting contest, packed house, electric atmosphere. Santana, got things going right away. Brooks Mutah started the game off with an electrifying 97-yard touchdown kickoff return, the third longest in school history. He just fielded that ball, and once he fielded that ball, it was zoom, followed his blockers and onto the races and into the house. And that, you know what? However, as electrifying as that was, for a while there, it was kind of like, okay, they got the high, and then some of us thought that the low was going to come, that the air kind of got taken out when they couldn't capitalize further. Temple threw the interception, and West Hills got the ball back, and Cole Klingerman, two more touchdowns on the night, including the big 40. Excuse me, the big 45, 40 plus yarder to pull within 7-6 because the kicker missed the extra point. It was an amazing night for the Sultans. Like I said, in front of a electric atmosphere, packed house on both sides. I did not think it was going to be a blowout. I figured it was going to be a close game just because of things that have happened in the past, and it's one of these games, as I did discussed before. You throw out the records. Doesn't matter if they're 0-8 or 8-0 or whatever. You just throw out the records because the teams know each other. And like I said, despite West Hills having won the previous 7 matchups, not since 2011, It was one of those deals that, okay, it goes Santana, they go up 14-6 at half, because Temple, he scored on a 1 yard, on a 1 or 2 yarder, to start the second quarter, and that was kind of um, it for the scoring in the first half, as both defenses came up huge. Of course, what people didn't realize was that Nathan Temple had been sick all week, so he kind of a off night, as you want to say. I mean, he was 12 of 18 for 110 yards. Didn't throw for a touchdown for the first time all season. However, he did have the one rushing touchdown. Randy Smith, 8 passes for 82 yards. Dawood Sadler added a rushing touchdown, later on, to kind of broke the camel's back, as you say, as you want to call it. However, West Hills, tried to make the comeback. Um, excuse me. But then, like I said, Santana scored and kind of put things away.
And Adam, for West Hills, Braden Oberg threw both touchdown passes to Cole. And, he's kind of been, as the weeks have gone along, a little bit fallen out of the spotlight a little bit as Gerardo Hernandez has come up with some big plays. Maybe things we weren't expecting from the West Hills quarterbacks, or maybe things we knew that would get there because they would just progress and get better, and they have. But big story, I think, there is that the sophomore in the big game, 2 big touchdown passes, a big future for Braden Oberg.
Oh yeah, most definitely. He played a really good game for being a sophomore. Um, I think both teams played commendably. Excuse me. It was just a back and forth affair, and it was gonna be who was gonna make, who was gonna flinch first and last, basically. Santana's defense played humongous. Nick Braze had 9 tackles. Sadler, besides his rushing touchdown, had 6 tackles and 2 sacks. Luke Simonek had a huge sack in the second half. I kind of, it's funny, when I heard that Temple was sick all week, I joked with my friend Luke Phillips, who's the AD. You'll like this one, because you're a longtime football fan. If you recall, Notre Dame, I said to Luke, my friend Luke Phillips, I'm like, oh, so he's playing his own version of Joe Montana when he got sick in the 1977 Cotton Bowl, which is famously known as the chicken soup game.
Before the youth.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so it's called the chicken soup. It was called the chicken soup game because again, like I said, Montana was sick, and he's trying to get chicken soup down in his system to get dehydrated and everything, just get liquids and fluids. And what does he do? He goes out and has a game of a lifetime against Texas A&M, and they win the national championship. So I was just kind of joking with my friend Luke. He's like, oh, he's Joe Montana with 103-degree temperature out there, huh? But all kidding aside, they, like I said, both teams played a really good game. Temple, he, for being as sick as he was, from my understanding, like I said, 12 of 18, didn't make any mistakes. Came up big when he had to, and that's the sign of a general. Of a field general, to come up big when you have to, maybe when you're not having the best game of your life, especially in a rivalry game. That's where characters are made, man. Are made is in the big moments, and especially in a rivalry game.
Adam, I heard it was such a big crowd there. Not everybody was in their seats when Brooks busted off that kickoff return to start the game, 97 yards. And from my understanding, Brooks didn't even know if he was going to be able to play in this game. I think there was a wedding rehearsal or a wedding that he had to attend. And
that was
we were
the
sworn to secrecy, not to tell anybody, but everybody knew, and he showed up at the game, and good thing. I mean, took the ball off.
no, that was the craziest thing. Yeah, that was the other thing. He wasn't even sure if he was going to play because, like you said, he was in a wedding or something that day or whatever, and he made it back in time and got inserted into the lineup, and he had 242 total yards of offense.
Yeah, I mean,
And
for a guy as consistent as he has been, and kind of been, and not really ever in the spotlight among some of the better players in the East County, he really had a monster performance in one of the biggest games the school's had in a long, long time, and it shouldn't be overlooked.
oh, definitely not. It's going to be one that he's going to remember for the rest of his life. These both teams. Like I said, it's not a. We were saying how in the previous week and during the week how this game may have gotten overlooked um, by previous West Hills teams because they thought of El Cap as the natural rivalry. And I get that. I understand that. But you know what? It's one city, two teams, one night of the year. Uh, and they all come together for the Battle of Santee, aka the Mayor's Cup. And it just so happened that Santana came out on top this year, and for the first time since 2011, 8-0. They matched their best start since that 2011 team. Actually, 8-0 was what they started out at before they played Mount Miguel the first game of league that year and lost. They finished 11-2, Division Four runner-ups to Valley Center. 20-14 was that final score. They're making history. It's 8 down out of 15 contests now for Santana.
Yeah, well, Adam, let's be frank. I mean, the Sultans are in position to make history this Friday night.
Oh, absolutely they are.
When they play Monta Vista. And let's give Monta Vista, we'll talk about them in a couple of minutes so we won't get too off base here because I'm going to give them a shot, especially after the way they performed against Mount Miguel this week. And they are the champions. Right now, the champions of the Grossmont Valley League. As much as everyone's talked about these Sultans and we've kind of talked about the publicity. Are they getting too much publicity? Not enough publicity? I don't know. But the Monarchs are still the champs. But if Santana can go in there and win this game and clinch at least a share of that first title in how many years, brother? This is going to be history this Friday night. But they got to get that win against Monta Vista.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. 1999 was the team. The last time if they do it, it'd be the third time in school history in the 50 plus years of 55th year of school, 54th year of existence. In 1989 was the only other year that they won a league title, and there was believe there was a forfeit in that season during league, so they were technically 3-0 or whatever it was. If I recall. I know something happened. I'll have to go back and look it up, but I know something happened like that. But in 1999, DJ Bush, John Fields, Michael Bass, Chris Mozzie, head coach Jerry Ralph and his staff, they 4-0, 10-0 in league, or 10-0 overall, 4-0 in league, and yeah. Santana has an excellent shot, but they got to get past those mighty Monarchs on Friday night. It's gonna be a ball game.
So, Adam, last week, or even the last couple of weeks, I've said, hey, you know what? West Hills, they're all about, oh, look at us. No one's respecting us. Who's going to keep talking bad about us? And we kind of said, I don't know if I kind of egged you on into agreeing with me or if you did. You know what? I think West Hills, especially if you look at the way the CIF rankings are structured and everyone kind of talking about the little mistake that maybe it is that Santana's ranked in the top 10 schools in the county while the voting is kind of caught up. What are they now? 13th, 12th? I don't remember what it was today, but they're right up there again. And we talked about how they could get into the top 10 if they roll this entire county schedule this year. But, they haven't really been featured out there at the on the Friday night television coverage too much. And I think that's where I would say they haven't gotten their just due. And I don't know when they're going to do it. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to do it again this week. And this is the league championship game. I know they have another game after that, but this is the league championship game now.
The craziest thing is the second you're talking about the television coverage. It's the second week in a row that the PPR has missed the Sultans' opening touchdown. It was probably the most electrifying play of the game, and they missed it. I didn't really realize that until it was brought to my attention by excuse me, by some other alumni of Santana who tagged me in a post. The highlights, I guess, started with Santana already up 7-0. It's like, come on, what's going on?
I was at a different game, and I enjoyed. Also, I want to thank you and 97.3. We had Braden on last week. We talked to you every week, and I just want to let you know I went to a different game, so I was listening because I knew I had an East County game in my ear, and wish I could have been out at one of those games. But I really enjoyed that coverage, and then I enjoyed your updates frequently from that game. It made me feel like I was right there, so appreciate it very much. You brought me the color and the excitement of those games. I just know of one thing, Adam, from following my tweet deck out at the other game that I was at. That first touchdown jumped right off my tweet deck. I was so excited when I saw that touchdown, not rooting for Santana or anything, but just that Brooks had scored the touchdown to kick it off in a big game. Knew Santana was ready to go. Not saying we rooted one way or the other, but West Hills has had that for so long now, and it's a great story going out Santana, West Hills. They're holding on to one of those perpetual trophies that they value so much. And I don't mean to make any noise about some of the things I've written about how West Hills has dismissed Santana as a rival. I think they actually regard both of them as rivals, especially now that Santana won. But I just think it makes for storylines, and storylines are things that you and I talk about and people read about and stuff like that. There was a great game out there on Friday night. West Hills should be proud. Look, Kip Klingerman, man, he had another interception in the game. West Hills defense did well with a couple of sacks. Rodriguez and Ruiz Castaneda, they're going to take on Escondido this week. And, Adam, that's going to be a tough game for West Hills. They're really in a desperate situation. So I don't know if you want to go into them a little bit. But
yeah, that game's going to be tough, man. Escondido, I just kind of – I don't know too much about them as of right now. But I know they're a high score. They're unless they've quieted down, they were a high scoring team early on in the season.
Yeah,
they lost to Hilltop in a shootout. They're going to be a tough team in that Division 4 playoffs.
Yeah, they're 5-2, Adam. The projections, I think, have them favored by a field goal or so, and so I think I respect the ratings on that one. And I think West Hills can win. They've had some good success, I believe, against Escondido in this. They've been playing now for, I don't know if it was just last year or maybe even longer. I think they might have this series even a little bit longer. I didn't research that too much. So anyway.
Well, if you remember, they won last year, West Hills did, in that shortened game. Everybody's game got shortened, but West Hills did. What's that?
The Braves and the Matadors ignored the Lightning last year.
Yeah, they're about probably one of the few teams that did that were able to get in their games. West Hills ended up winning, and Monte Vista ended up winning too.
No, I'm sorry, I'm taking so long.
No, we're good.
Just wanted to add on Santana and that big game this week. Watch out for Monte Vista. Okay, I mean Santana's supposed to go in there. They're considerably favored. We already talked about the ratings. We said we weren't going to go too much into them online, but certainly Santana, they had him by favored by about 4 touchdowns. And I think we said, hey, those ratings are nice and we do respect them. But Monte Vista looked pretty good last week. And you look at the way it played out this week. This is why I want to credit West Hills so much. I mean, look at that score. You talked about it. At halftime, at the end of the third quarter, West Hills was still in the ball game. So that had to give them great confidence going into the fourth quarter. And I think the score is reflective of a great game by both teams. And the team that was expected to win did win.
Oh yeah, yes. In the end, Santana tried to give away the game back, give away the game. Too many penalties. They accumulated the most amount of penalties in one night against the Wolfpack than they had the whole entire season combined. It was just it's a game where the bizarre happens.
Okay.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
But you know what? Santana showed their poise and overcame the mistakes. And, like I said, like I was talking about earlier, despite Temple being sick, they overcame it. He played pretty well.
And not sure how it went down with the penalties. I imagine whenever you have two rivals going at it, sometimes there are some extracurricular penalties that contribute to those. And if you're telling me that Santana has been a team that has not been particularly penalized throughout the season, then I'll chalk that up to playing a quote-unquote rival.
It wasn't, and it really wasn't the extracurricular stuff. It was just stupid mistakes.
Okay, well, you don't want to see that, so.
No,
okay,
yeah.
Let's get off another 15 minutes down. We'll never keep any viewers this way, but we got some blowouts too we can talk about. And again, I think we can talk more about what's upcoming with this one. But Helix beat Valhalla, and they did it very efficiently. They scored on practically every drive, and except for Valhalla got that thrilling intentional grounding at the end of the first half and got on the board. Keegan Baker did not play, unfortunately, and unfortunately, El Elyon Noah did not play.
Yeah, the El Elyon Noah obviously still has his foot injury. We'll see if he's cleared to play for Friday night. As far as Keegan Baker, they just kept him out just because, I know you want to. It's a game where, were they going to win? No, nobody expected them. So I can see why they held him out. My understanding, he was chomping at the bit, but that's all right. Josh Meredith, had a heck of a game. Again for the Norsemen, 3 catches for 66 yards, and he had an interception on defense. Cameron Brown for the Highlanders, 10 of 18 for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jaden Brown, his brother Jaden, had a 77-yard pick six. Christian Washington, who started in place of Noah, ran the ball for 101 yards on 6 carries and 2 touchdowns. Also, Delshawn Traylor, the Swiss Army knife, as I like to call him, he added a 54-yard touchdown also. So, it was just one of those things that Helix, they put the game away right up, pretty quickly. And, Valhalla just, it was one of those ones where they don't get injured, basically.
No doubt about it. And I'm unclear of the status of Noah. I'm trying to read the tea leaves on this one because haven't heard from, haven't talked to them at all, or know, or if I should know. That's just it. We'll see on Friday night. But the way it was portrayed was that maybe he was just, making sure, taking the game off. You see him at the game with the boot on, with a considerable limp, but you have the boot on, so you're going to limp. And then some information that came out that we would find more information out on Monday, and that maybe the news was not good. So again, I'm up in arms about this. I don't know what it's going to be, but I will say this, talking about the game, and we can talk about, you talked about what they did. I can talk about maybe the game coming up. They don't need Noah again to beat the Foothillers. Now, that's not a slide on the Foothillers at all. The Helix number 2s are great, and all these guys are great. It would be big help if Noah could play in this game, especially considering that this Grossmont team, as I said, this is a historic team, possibly. For all that happened last year, and for everyone that want to say, every time other people want to talk about this might be the year, and I just shake my head no. And I still would do it today because I'm just kind of teasing. When you have an overwhelming series, Grossmont cannot win this game, right? But I'm just looking at it. They're at home. They're playing great. They're playing better than they were in that second half against that Madison game for sure. They're playing like they have in a lot of the halves this year, which has been tremendous. And now they're at home, and if Noah doesn't play, and all the noise and all the waiting and anticipation of trying to get up and bite a Helix team somehow, some way, there's some things maybe they're playing in their favor this week. Talking about the Foothillers.
I'll tell you what. It would not shock me if it's 2014 deja vu. And what I mean is Helix going into when the Helix Highlanders, who were really good that year, went into El Capitan out in Lakeside. And I was sitting there with our buddy, Bill Dickens, our buddy Bill, and El Cap was winning that game. And Bill and I are looking at each other like, are we seeing what I'm seeing on the field, Moni? That's what I said to Bill. And Bill said the same thing to me. And sure enough, it was lightning in a bottle for El Cap. It would not shock me if that happens for Grossmont. It really would not. I'm not saying it's going to, but it would not, because looking at in the past history, the game hasn't been close. It hasn't been close since 2006 when it was 20-16. And prior to that, 2004 when it was 23-17. On average, it's been 35 plus points every single time in favor of Helix in the margin of victory.
Well, that gun is still fastened above the place where you check out your books or whatever they do nowadays. Whatever they do. What do? Check out iPads or download stuff.
Yeah.
You got to go get something at the library, right? You take something from the library. The gun's right there, I think. At least that's the last time.
No, it is. It's bolted onto the wall. It is. Our buddy Chase Osborne was telling me this. It's bolted onto the wall, and the two librarian ladies, I'm sorry, I don't recall their names off the top. They love it. They love the fact that they walk into the library every single morning, and they see, and there it is, the famous Civil War musket is bolted up onto the wall, and they don't want to see it leave. Now, if Grossmont were to win, I don't know. I mean, do they have a way of getting it off the wall? I don't know, but I mean, I hope for Helix's sake it doesn't come to that. But it's just funny to think about things like that,
Well, Adam, I don't know. I've only been doing these, ever since I got back in with this technology and this videos, making this so much fun that I just off the cuff, I just thought I had one of the best lines I've come up with on one of these shows when I said that if Grossmont ever won that musket, they'd probably, break it or bust it over their leg. I'd never want to see the thing again.
Right.
Like a new trophy. I mean, but, with all apologies to the Campbell family that came up with the idea of the musket, it was actually a Helix student, the student body president at Helix, Jack Campbell. He was a running back for Helix, and their family had inherited Civil War musket, and they would just start Helix, and Helix didn't even have their own campus the first year. There were get this when they built it, 70 years ago or whatever, there were construction delays, so things never changed with the world. And the campus, the Helix campus, was actually delayed. The construction was delayed, but I'll just give Grossmont, a little peek at what they're missing. Okay, I have it on my phone. Okay, I'm a Highlander here, so I'm here to talk the Hillers up, though, and I hope the Highlanders, they know to take it seriously. The thing that scares me is that Helix right now, I know that they're playing the quote unquote easy part of the schedule, and they're going right up and down the field, Adam. They're just scoring on every drive. I mean, every drive, 2 or 3 plays, really, then a big play happens. And they're doing it against some of these lesser teams in other ways. They're stuffing them in the backfield, knocking them over, picking up the ball and running it in. They're intercepting it and running it in. They're just making a mockery of some of these, and not in a disgraceful way. They're just playing ball. But I think that's the thing that Grossmont, has to worry about. That playoff game last year, against a depleted Grossmont club, one of the, least successful Grossmont clubs in many, many years. Throw last year away. That playoff game that was 68-7. They played on the Lightning shortened game last year, was 28-0. So Helix just has so many weapons in that one. And hey, hats off also to Grossmont. They had some good play in that game, as well. Like I said, Keegan Baker did not play in the game, but Colette and Lindsay, the senior, had 54 yards on 10 carries, and Josh Meredith had 3 receptions for 66 yards. He got on the highlights on TV with a real nice catch. So, Valhalla next week's going to be playing another one of the top teams in the county, the top team, according to the CIF official power rankings, at least last week. Things might switch this week because of Steel Canyon playing El Cap. Their power rating might go down because the strength of schedule thing we'll see tomorrow. But, Valhalla, they're going to be playing for the Hamashaw helmet anyway this week.
Yeah, obviously Keegan Baker will obviously play in that game. That's another big rivalry game. Hasn't,
He won't play?
he wasn't hurt.
Okay.
He wasn't hurt. They just held him out.
I don't know.
No, he wasn't hurt. They just held him out just because they were playing Helix. What's that?
I'd want to play at least a little bit against Helix if I'm a player. So I understand. I mean, they still have a chance. Like I said, we know their season comes down to the next 2 games after this. So even this game, I mean, I don't know, this is the big rivalry game. Maybe he will play if there's not an injury, but the games after this are the important games for Valhalla if they want to have any chance at the postseason.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, their strength of schedule is going to go through the roof. Playing against Helix and Steel Canyon on Friday. Like you said, they have to win something because they were down towards the bottom, if I recall, right?
No, well, they're in the middle. They're going to be in the middle.
Okay.
Basically, we talked about it last week. They can't lose to El Cap. If they lose to El Cap, then they're going to have to win one of those other 2 games against the stronger teams. So that's the key game. I think they're kind of right. They were like 8th or 9th last week. So I don't think they're going to lose much ground considering the Grossmont loss, but they could be getting into the territory of 9th or 10th. But if you lose to El Cap, which is down, 1 from the bottom, I think they're almost going to end up next to each other, like in 13th and 14th. Maybe they still could be 12th, but I don't know. I think that'll be too damaging. So, but hey, you know what? This week, Valhalla, they are, I believe it's on the road. I believe it's at Steel Canyon. So,
yes,
there's some distance between these teams right now. But remember, just 3 years ago, Valhalla was on a 5-game winning streak in this series.
Oh yeah, no, it's like with anything, there can be a turn in the program and Steel Canyon right now, they're on a school record roll, first time 7-0 ever. If they get past this, it sets up the showdown the following week for the league title against the Helix Highlanders. And I believe that this week is also Steel Canyon. They already have their homecoming.
I'm not sure. No, I think
it might
this week. We're going to talk about it in a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just one of those things. The Cougars. Valhalla, they'll be okay. I think they'll be ready to go. I think they'll put up pretty decent fight against the Cougars. Going back to the Helix Highlanders,
I can't.
you know,
I got. Yeah, I mean,
um,
I'm excited for. Hey, you know what? I'm speaking from a Highlander. I'm excited for the Foothillers' chances this year.
yeah,
I know you said it would not surprise you. I'm going to be honest. It will surprise me. Of course, it will surprise me. It will surprise anyone. But here's the thing, and I'll let you finish up. But I got to say this about this domination in this series. Okay, while the Scotties are the obvious favorite once again. Okay, one thing is for certain: let's just call them perennially upset-minded Grossmont. Okay, they are due. They're due, and that's dangerous.
they have to win sometime. I mean, holy smokes! I mean, the last time they won back in 1991, Tom Carlo, their current head coach, was the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta win. It just amazes me the talent that they've had over the years there at Grossmont. I mean, don't get me wrong, Helix has had some major players. I mean, I'm looking at the scores. Like I said, the closest game prior to the '06 and '04 and '06 games was 2013 when it was 58-36. That's 22 points. I mean, the rest of the time it's 41-0, 54-0, 54-10, I'm sorry, 42-0, 45-14, 56-10, 68-16, 45-21, 57-3, 27-28 nothing in that storm game, the lightning game, and then 68-7 in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Like you said, Grossmont is due sometime. If they want to be taken seriously, and I know that they do because they talk about it, they have to somehow show up and win this game.
Yeah. Adam, for the first whatever year, 40 years or so, or 40, 48, whatever it was. I mean, the series was virtually even. It was like 20-19 and 1 or 20-19 and 2, something like that. And now, when they go to, if they ever have to take that musket off the wall, it's not going to be one of those drills where like they're doing reversible screws. They're going to need an old-fashioned hammer to get the nails, and use the back end hammer. Okay, so just for the record, because they want to, you want to tell all your friends when you're at the game, when you're on the Helix side, how many years in a row we beat them. We've beat them. I'll say, Bill, rest in peace, my brother, my Hiller brother. But 22 years in a row, but 23 games because last year there was a playoff game. So 22 years that thing's been nailed to the wall, and no reason why old Betsy isn't going to come off that wall this year. But you know what, Grossmont, like I said, I'd rather it be one of these type of years where, hey, Grossmont could really. There's a very high ranking right now for Grossmont. That Madison, I know they're mad about that Madison game because. Could you imagine the hype surrounding this game if they would have won that game against Madison? But let's not make them, feel terrible about that. I mean, Helix is 10th in the state right now, so there's that. So.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a packed house. So get there early, bring your popcorn, whatever you want to call it, and it's gonna be game time come Friday night.
Okay, so Adam, you wanted to talk about Steel Canyon. It was homecoming last week.
Okay.
So let me just start off with the shout out to the homecoming king, T-Max Numa. He was the homecoming king in Braylon Willett. She looked beautiful. She was the homecoming queen. T-Max is on the football team, so he looked great. He was wearing his crown. He was wearing his jersey like a homecoming player should. Also, want to mention back at I did mention Satbury was homecoming king for Granite. Yeah. Anyways, Adam, the Cougars defeated El Capitan 35-13. I'll just mention, you could talk about the game, but Steel Canyon went into the week number 1, a little bit controversially, in the CIF official power ratings. Whether or not they'll have that spot tomorrow, I don't know, because playing El Cap is going to make their strength of schedule go down. And, of course, Cathedral, they had a pretty tough game against Madison, and Helix, they had an easier game. It'd be interesting to see tomorrow. I mean, Cathedral, I don't know. I don't know. They could pass them up.
Yeah, considering Cathedral has the for the old timers the game called the Charity Bowl, but many people know it as the Holy Bowl. But originally, the original name was the Charity Bowl against us. They got that game against St. Augustine's on Friday night. But yeah, going back to Steel Canyon, it will be interesting to see what happens when those rankings come out later today. Um, excuse me. But in their game against the Vaqueros, Chance Johnson had 2 punt returns for touchdowns, 51 and 57 yards, respectively. He also had an interception to lead the Cougars. Antoine Walker had an 11-yard pick six. Wesley Neely scored on a 71-yard run. For the Vaqueros, Wickhauser threw for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Vaqueros. Obviously, 35-13, the prediction, and I know ECPreps had their prediction. I think it was like 62-0 or some crazy score. I honestly did not think it was going to be that much. Just because, for one, Scott Longerbone just, is one of those guys that doesn't run up the score against anybody. And secondly, I don't know if Steel Canyon can score that many points. I mean, they probably could. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen them do it. So, so yeah, I mean, 35-13 was the final, and it was a pretty sounded like it was a Cougar victory from almost from the get go.
Yeah, I mean, they led 35-0 at halftime. So I think, if anything, let's give El Cap their praise first. El Capitan outscored Steel Canyon, mighty Steel Canyon, 13-0 in the second half. Now, I didn't go to the game. I got a report on the game. I looked at the stats. The stats were decent. You mentioned those punt returns. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, Steel Canyon, they had a monstrous year last year on special teams. And I don't think they reached the end zone this year. One of my favorite storylines was head coach Scott Longerbone, who's also the team special teams coach, would take them to Chinese buffet restaurant on Saturday every week that the team returned a touchdown. But this year, after he almost went broke last year and had to dip into his retirement fund, he put money in his pockets, I think, this year. But Chance Johnson, I don't know if they get to go twice or maybe they can just get seconds because he had the 2 punt returns. But anyways, it was 13-0 El Cap in the second half. The Cougar defense, they also scored on a pick six. Antoine Walker had that, and I know they've scored on a pick six. They do have explosive kick return teams and all. So, but I don't know. Maybe they went with some of the number 2s. Maybe they knew they had it. I don't know. But 13-0 in the second half, a little bit of concern there, I think, for Steel Canyon. There's no concerns at all. They did the job. So, great job there. I will mention for El Capitan, Kalen Lavallee had a 70-yard touchdown on one of those passes from Wickhauser. And Antoine Yoakley caught a pass in the back of the end zone, the other pass, right, from Wick. So I think a good job there. And we already talked about El Capitan going to be hosting Granite Hills this week. And, Granite Hills is great. Granite Hills is favored. They're favored by about 4 touchdowns or so. But, we keep talking about El Cap's played a tough schedule, and it's true. I mean, if you look at the strength of schedule, they played the toughest schedule in entire, Division III. It's disappointing that they're winless, but they've been underdogs every game.
Yeah, they most certainly have, and honestly, they're still probably the best winless team in all of San Diego. For this week against the Eagles, even if you don't go for the football game, because it might be a blowout. I know a lot of people are expecting Eagles to win this game pretty big. It's going to be homecoming, and not just any homecoming for the Vaqueros. The 60th anniversary version of homecoming for the Vaqueros, and I've been told that they're doing something real. They're really jazzing things up this week out in Lakeside. So get there early because they're expecting a big packed house on Friday night. As Granite Hills does travel, they travel very well. Their fans come out and show, and especially since, like I said, since it's the 60th anniversary on homecoming for homecoming, um, the Vaqueros, excuse me, the ASB and everybody, they're doing something really cool. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be. I just been told that they're jazzing it up and there's going to be something really spectacular. So if you're going to be going out to that game, I suggest you're getting there early so you can get in right away. And like I said, even if you don't have fun watching the football game, the halftime festivities will at least give you something to look forward to.
Well, I think that's a big deal. I mean, El Capitan, one of the historic schools out of all of our, one of the oldest and historic schools of all of our schools. So that is a big deal. And thank you for reminding me about that. And yeah, I mean, you know how big it's going to be. I mean, almost all of their team gear this year has that 60 logo on it.
Yes.
So I think that things have really been building up for this game. Maybe they can work a little magic against Granite Hills this week. And I think we already talked enough about Steel Canyon's game with Valhalla. So another good game. I think this is a real good game last week. Don't let the score fool you.
Yeah.
You know, pretty close game throughout. Monte Vista kind of pulled away, Mount Miguel kind of had the same problems that they've had. They kind of start kind of slow, and so that kind of led to this, Adam. And Monte Vista, I think all the confidence in the world going into next week's game because they got this win over their Spring Valley rival.
Yeah, I was following this game on social media, trying to get updates because Brett Fisher, Monte Vista alum and former Monarch, he was messaging me trying to get updates, and so I was trying to find updates myself because I didn't really see many updates, and then I finally found updates. And next thing I know, I'm seeing it's a shootout. I'm like, holy cow, what a crazy game. Isaiah Gardner for the Monarchs ran for 173 yards on 29 carries and 2 touchdowns. Ruben Silva had 18 carries for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Xavier Leva ran 8 times, 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. So obviously it sounded like it was a balanced game on the ground for the Monarchs. Doesn't sound like they had many passing yards, if any. For the Matadors, again, sounds like you were saying, Monty, their issues came back to haunt them, starting out slow, which to me doesn't make any sense. I mean, for all the offensive weapons, that just amazes me that they only average maybe I think it was a touchdown or so in the first half. Jaheim Allen Pompey caught 7 balls for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got 60 catches for almost 1,300 yards on the season and 14 touchdowns in 7 games for the Matadors. J.D. Laverdier was 16 of 25 for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus he rushed for 3 scores. The other Matador to have a game was Kojo Miller, 5 passes for 95 yards. I mean, it's amazing. Like I said, 55-34. When I saw that score, I was like, wait a minute. Shouldn't it be Mount Miguel 55, Monte Vista 34? But nope, that wasn't the case. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, where you see Monte Vista's game, and they did get to the outside on some of those runs as well, but they were using, play action dive fakes in the middle. Whether or not it was a read, I don't know. I'm not sophisticated enough to know how they do all that. Monte Vista probably not as much as other teams. They're just going to run the misdirection type stuff, but I think that they kind of own the middle, so to speak. That's where I think their strength came through at the line of scrimmage, and I think they were really just running through them at will there, it looks like, after a while. So make no mistake, Adam, the defending Rosemont Valley League champions will defend their title this Friday night against the Sultans. It is homecoming, and want to just mention, with heavy hearts last week, that gentleman from Bakersfield that fell from that platform, that kind of brought a somber cast over that game last week. But we're going to be back on it with homecoming this week, and that construction still going on, and things are a little bit tight over there. So going to want to talk about getting there early. I think you got to get there early for this one.
Oh yeah. Plus, it's also it's always such a funky parking lot to get in and out of, anyways. Also, yeah, with everything being so tight over there. I haven't driven by, so I don't know what the parking lot's like. But I'm assuming it's like any of the other schools with the construction, it's going to be not a lot of parking. So get there early, and like I said, it's gonna be homecoming, big crowd. I'm probably gonna go over there myself because, to me, it's probably the second best game in East County. Helix versus Grossmont. I mean, that's going to be everybody's going to be at that game. So everybody else, they can go cover that game. And plus, I haven't seen Monte Vista yet this year. Also, speaking of big wins, Coach Hamamoto he got his 230th win. So now he's in sole possession of fourth place all time, moving past Morse legend John Shacklet in section history. But don't look now. The gentleman, guess what? Who came back? Rob Gilster, coach of Valley Center. He's only a couple wins behind Coach Hamamoto. So we'll see about that. But that's pretty awesome. Coach Hamamoto, 30 plus years in the coaching business, making his mark in San Diego football history. Not just history, but on kids in general. And he's such a great guy to talk to. He's so humble. I know every time I've met him and been able to talk to him, he's so gracious that you or I or whoever's out there, he gives them his full attention, the time commitment and everything. And the kids, just getting them the coverage is what he likes. Because he makes it like when he was interviewed for the UT, I think I saw, he didn't want it to be about him. He wanted it to be about the players when they won that game. So hats off to Coach Hamamoto. Like I said, he's a great guy. I mean, I don't know him too well, just from talking to him the last few years and also over the years. But no, like I said, he and there was something, he's led three teams to various section title games, and obviously won a couple of them. So again, hats off to him, and it's going to be a great game on Friday night.
Yeah, and Adam, I think for Hamamoto and the Monarchs, they could bring the master, if you will, another league title. They could upset San on Friday night. They earn their way into that game.
It's going to be interesting because if they do, I was kind of looking at the numbers there. Yeah, Santana's 2-0, but with Monte Vista only playing, this is only their second league game. They'll be 2-0. Santana will be 2-1. Sultans are going to need some help if they lose this game on Friday night. They'll need West Hills to step up and beat the Monarchs.
Yeah. And that's not out of the question either.
It's definitely not.
Yeah. So so I think that's kind of the interesting thing, and I want to mention, you mentioned, of course, the great players that had the games for Monte Vista: Isaiah Gardner, Ruben Silva, Giovanni Olivas with that 77-yard kickoff return. But I'll do one for Coach Ham right now, and that's I'm going to read off the names of some of these offensive linemen: Aaron Post, Jesse Schrader, Angel Villanueva, Brandon Narvaez, and Jared Reinhold. I'll also throw in a couple of tight ends, I believe, Emmanuel Zamudio and Victor Meza. So that's for those guys in the trenches who've done a great job for Monte Vista. We know, all those offensive linemen are important, but they're a little bit more important sometimes at Monte Vista, certainly. So
yeah, because they play both. I'm sure the majority of them play both ways,
and they run the ball.
they're not big guys, and it's very impressive on what they're able to do with that option offense.
Monte Vista owned Santana last year. Adam, 35-0 was the game that was played.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first half of the night of the lightning storms, just like we talked about. This is the week. This is the week. I don't know what the weather's like this Friday. This is the exact same week. I know we're getting in that weather pattern change. I don't know.
Yes.
Expecting rain and lightning this Friday.
I looked at it tonight just out of curiosity, and rain is not, as of right now anyways, is not in the forecast.
You know who brought the lightning that night was Jamon. He had 329 yards in the first half and 5 touchdowns. So then
I was there.
God came down and ended the game.
He rolled him over like a battle tank, man.
We were there.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then all of a sudden during halftime, they got the homecoming festivities in, Santana did, and all of a sudden, wham, the lightning came down, the rain came down, and all across the county, man. It was crazy.
I saw that first lightning bolt, and I'm no expert, I'm no expert. I'm just a guy in a box on YouTube. But I turned to you immediately and I said, Adam, I think this game's over.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I left and I called you on the phone. I took off to another field thinking that, I'm going to go to a field that's a little bit south of here and see what the weather's like. But, I mean, no game played except for the Braves and the Matadors, which, actually was kind of on the other side of 94. And, like I said, there was lightning all over. Don't know how they got the game in, but maybe it's a little bit clearer over there anyway. So, oh, man, I'm killing us on time.
It's all right.
Let's look at Christian and Mira Mesa just because I want to take a look at what the Patriots did against the Marauders. And Adam, is a pretty good win for Christian in the Eastern League because, you know what, they moved to 2-0 right now. And they're going to play Morse this week. And Morse is the team that eliminated Christian in the playoffs last year. So the Patriots, they dominated really Mira Mesa this week. Mira Mesa, well, they're not the same Mira Mesa as usual. Nate Stein, 95 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I want to mention junior lineman Alonzo Glenn with 3 sacks. Alex Markowitz, Van Nebling, Elio Myers also had sacks. Quarterback Carson Opper had a pair of interceptions for the Patriots. So I think it's interesting here, Adam. The Patriots last week, we kind of talked about it. They didn't run the ball at all. They did pass a little more this week, but we have some new names on our list from the Patriots. So that's a good sign because they need all hands on deck. This is rated to be a very close game by those ECPreps numbers that you like. I'm talking about Morris and Christian, but certainly you can talk about Christian Mira Mesa and the upcoming game.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, you covered the numbers for the Christian against Mira Mesa. Obviously, it sounded like Christian, came out and, did what they were supposed to do against the Marauders. This week it's going to be really interesting because Morse, who's coming off a huge loss to La Jolla, interestingly enough.
Yeah, fourth in Division III, by the way.
Yeah, look out! Don't look out now! Don't look out now! Here come the Vikings. Christian. Can the Tigers bounce back against the Patriots? I don't know, man. They're going to be licking their wounds a little bit, and kind of hungry, obviously hungry, looking to bounce back. But Christian's on a roll right now, a little bit with Nate Stein and Gabe Krug and Krug, however you pronounce his last name. My apologies. I honestly think Christian has a good shot to beat the Morse Tigers on Friday night.
Morse rushed for over 375 yards in the playoff game last year and recorded 4 sacks. They beat Christian 34-6. I was stunned and floored by that result because Christian had won on the road at Morse just 14-8, which at the time was also a bit of a surprise. Maybe just because I was expecting maybe that would be a home team. If I had to look back on it, I'd say, Morse probably should have won the regular season game. They're at home. It's a pretty even matchup. And then when Christian hosted Morse, I was thinking that, well, hey, Christian already won on the road against Morse, so now they're at home. They should win this game. And Morse and, Coach McNair, masterful game plan, ran all over him. So
I thought the same thing too last year. Thought the same thoughts. So will history repeat itself? That's the thing. I don't. Morse is very athletic. They obviously coming off a game where they probably shouldn't have lost to the Vikings, but Hoya, they're playing really well. Obviously this year, like you said, they're rated number 4 in their division in Division 3. We'll see what kind of confidence they bring. I mean, I think Coach McNair is going to have the Tigers ready to play Friday night, and but I also think Coach Oliver and Coach Beazer are going to have the Patriots ready to play Friday night. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I honestly think the Patriots are going to come out on top because I think they need the game more.
Yeah, maybe I'm. Let me process it. Morse is 0-1. Christian is 2-0. I mean, Morse needs it to get back in this race, but Christian. Look, here's the interesting thing about it, and maybe you can help me on this because this is where I struggle. Okay, and this is just in the 2 rating systems, so I know how you feel already, kind of. But in just trying to pick a winner of this game, maybe because Christian's at home, a little bit better record. Maybe of course, I'm going to pick the Patriots to win. I want them to win, but the Patriots are ahead of the Tigers in the power ratings, the official CIF power ratings, but the ECPreps, CalPreps has the Tigers higher rated. That's the one that takes those margins of victory into account. So despite the slight disparity of records, the Tigers are the higher rated team on the ECPreps stuff. What do you make of that?
Not having seen the schedule of Morse, it sounds like they've played maybe a little bit tougher schedule than Christian, maybe.
No, Morse has a 1. Morse has a 1.8 and Christian has a 2.9. That's before last week, so I that's not quite accurate. It looks like it's just extremely closely rated. Like I could just leave it at that.
I mean, obviously both teams graduated a lot of players off their respective teams last year. Christian, obviously, with Gabe Krug, Nate Stein, and the other guys that you mentioned.
They're looking good.
That kind of bodes well for the Patriots that other guys stepped up and were able to, contribute in the offense last week in their win against the Marauders, against the Mira Mesa Marauders. So it's not just Nate Stein or Gabe Krug, for the Patriots. I think just because it's at home, obviously they get the 2 or 3 points, as you and I have discussed in the past, for home field advantage. I think Christian has, from what I've seen, has better special teams, I think. And I think that, special teams, as you know, is huge.
Well, Stein had a 3-yard score in the first quarter, a 5-yard run in the second quarter, and a 7-yard TD in the third quarter. So Christian, that was interesting. They scored a touchdown in every quarter. Christian Salacup, that main special teams guy that you mentioned, he did have 6 catches for 54 yards in the game. So That's going to be a good game this week out at Valley Stadium. So, all right, Adam, I think this was actually one of the better games of the week. It didn't get a lot of publicity, so let's talk about it now and talk about our El Cajon Valley Braves, because I'm really proud of what they did. They were down 19-6 in the fourth quarter of this game and came back to tie the game 19-19 and only gave up a touchdown with 1:30 left in the game. I mean, they were clutch coming back against Castle Park, undefeated Castle Park. I mean, they were basically just a minute and a half away from knocking off this undefeated team.
Especially in Division 5. This was a key Division 5 matchup. And I think it bodes well for the confidence of the Braves. Joe Malone, 18 of 29 for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those are pretty decent numbers for Malone. Clarence Johnson caught 6 passes for 82 yards and a touchdown, and he rushed for another score. I honestly think the fact that they went down to the South Bay, where it's always tough to play, especially at Castle Park, because I don't think it's turf, it's grass. So that's always interesting. They gave the Trojans a run for their money on Friday night, and the fact that the Braves lost in the last minute and a half, I don't think it's something that to hang your heads down. Again, this is one of those things that Coach Osborne can say, look, guys, you guys gave probably the number 1 or number 2 team in Division 5 a run for their money. It's going to bode well for them come in the playoffs.
And the Braves are certainly in position to make these playoffs. They play in Mount Miguel this week. It's going to be a very, very tough game for them.
Yeah.
They're at home. Here's the thing. I can tell you this, Braves. Mount Miguel, look, I could just, Jaheim and what can I say about those guys right now, Adam? They're still clicking despite that loss. You mentioned all the Jaheim statistics. He leads the nation, according to ECPreps. I mean, maybe everyone hasn't reported, but I would think that anybody's proud of their statistics is going to report their statistics, especially if they have 12 or 1,300 yards. So maybe there's someone out there. Maybe there's a couple of people out there with 12 or 1,300 yards, but if so, they're not telling anybody, and there's no reason not to. So in my eyes, Jaheim Allen Pompey leads the country in receiving yards, and no one can tell me different. If you got a guy, just tell me who he is, and I'll respect you. Show me a highlight or two, and Jaheim is number 2. It doesn't matter. He's one of the elite receivers in this county. Let me tell you this: I saw a private list. I might lose my job here this week. I saw a private list from the Prep Pigskin Report, from the main guy, the head honcho, the top snout, and he had a short list of names for the podium, and Jaheim Allen Pompey was on that list. He's a junior. No, he's a senior. I always get that wrong. But he was on that list. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of great players. The list was kind of long. He's on that list, and he deserves it.
It doesn't surprise me that he would. That does not surprise me one bit that he's on that list.
Well, the Braves are going to have to slow him down. They're going to have to slow down Jacob, who's doing an incredible job, especially with his running. We kind of teased him when we interviewed him. He's averaging 2 yards a carry, Adam. He's got 13 touchdowns. He's got those Tom Brady numbers.
Now, I'll say this. If the Matadors start slow,
that's it.
And something is really wrong. This is one of those games where I do not expect them to have their slow start in the first half. Because going back and looking at the stats, on their average score, they were only averaging 7 to 10 points in that first half, and then in the second half they were averaging 30 plus. Like I said, if they only score 7 points or whatever in that first half, then hats off to Coach Osborne, man. I'll tell you what, excuse me, if I see that score is close on my phone, if there is any updates at the half, um, I'll be like, wow, okay, then something. There's got to be a cause for concern for the Matadors, in my honest opinion,
If
Moni.
I'm the Braves, if I'm Coach Osborne, look, here's the thing. Last week, Coach Osborne said teams are starting to stack the box against us. Joe Malone had career game last week, I think. I didn't look back to see, but 213 yards,
Mm-hmm.
2 touchdowns, pretty good game for Malone. And we know the Braves have explosive players. You talked about them, and they had a pretty good game last week. Clarence Johnson had that key touchdown to tie the game. Demarius Hyde, he had a big touchdown in the game. So I think the Braves can score against Mount Miguel. I mean, I'd say, look what Monte Vista did. I'd tell them, look, 40, 55 points they gave up. We could score. We could score on these guys. So, give them something to play for. And if I could, I don't know if you could tell a team, hey, let's go out there in the beginning of the game, Braves, and sell out, because this team does not perform well, Mount Miguel, in the first half. It's a fact. Mount Miguel, we don't have to tell them. They probably know they got to get better. They got to have better starts. Otherwise, when they get into that Division IV playoff, they're standing for Mount Miguel as much as these stats have gone. I mean, some of the games, they're not in great standing. They're not really in position for a bye at this point. So, it's important for Mount Miguel to try to make sure they get these wins. That's all I got to say, I think, about it. Braves did a great job, though. They could be very proud of their effort.
Absolutely, and it's going to only give them the confidence, and as long as they can stay healthy and no injuries or whatever, I think they'll do okay in that Division 5 playoffs instead of a one and done like it's been the last couple years.
Yeah, just really excited to see. Come on, Braves. Let's play some D. Let's try to slow these guys down. Let's try to slow JD. Let's try to slow Jaheim. I like those guys a lot. I make my affinity for them known. But Jaheim is on pace to possibly set a section record in receiving yards. Braves, they'll go out and win that game, but also try to do a number on some of these guys. They want to run up some big numbers. And good luck this week. That's going to be a fun game out there, I think, this week. So,
yeah.
All right, Adam. I don't know what else you got for me, but I think we're about time to get out. Oh, okay. I got something for you, and we'll wrap it up. But today, big news. A childhood friend of mine, Jerry Schneep, announcing that he and I believe Mr. Labetta, is that right,
Yes.
are going to retire from their jobs at the CIF office. I don't know what that says for old guys like us. I mean, he was just a couple of years ahead of me. He's a Highlander. I can remember going and hanging out at the Schneep house with Jackie and Jerry after school a couple times and getting ready to go play ball at the park or something like that. I don't even remember, but he lived right across from the H pretty much on the houses right there on Yale Street or whatever that road is.
Yep.
And, growing up. And so thank you for being a friend to all the media. I think, if anything, all of our recent commissioners, have done a great job over these years that we've been doing this, maybe last, 20, 30 years. But I think that Jerry has been the most media friendly of all these commissioners throughout the years. So thank you to Jerry, my friend.
I've known him for a long time, like you. When he was at Helix, coached baseball, and then of course he was the vice principal at Santana High School. He hired my friend Luke Phillips, who's now the athletic director at Santana. When Luke applied to become a teacher, him and Labita, who's the assistant commissioner to Schneep, both these guys, that's a hard job, man. You got to put up with a lot of stuff, and both of them have done a phenomenal job over their tenure. Whether it be instituting the playoff systems that we've seen from the going from the old enrollment system to the power rankings to what's now. Has it been all fun and games? No, but like you said, they've done a really good job, and they have been probably the most media friendly of the commissioners, and I think that's great. And obviously, whoever's going to applying for both positions, they've got big shoes to fill, because these guys, they've done a phenomenal job in their tenure, and so it'll be interesting to see who does apply. Now, these guys aren't just stepping down right away. They're going to be there till the end of the year in June. So they'll be there for basketball, baseball, and softball, and track and field hockey, and all the rest of the sports. So it's not like they're stepping down tomorrow. They just made their announcement. There have been rumblings because
that's what I wanted to hear. Is there an Adam Paul shortlist?
I've heard. Well, I mean, well, look who took over for Carlton. Ron Marquez. He would make a great leader for CIF. He's married. He's media friendly. He's technology efficient.
He everything in that office right now that the other two guys don't.
Right. I think it's no, what the term is, no short to them, but Marquez, he does a lot. Also, stepping into the shoes for Carlton. Carlton Hogue, who retired a couple years ago. I mean, I that's just a name that I first thought of, just because he's already there in the office and he knows what the deal is. As we've had a person here, Ron Marquez, great guy. Absolutely, he's very friendly. You've talked to him. I think I've talked to him quite a few times over the years. He comes from Cathedral Catholic, and I believe he might even been there when it was uni even. I don't quote me on that, but no, I mean, whoever applies for it's obviously going to have some big shoes to fill, and it'll be interesting to see who does. I mean, could Robert Wilson from Valhalla maybe? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's another name that I've heard in the past. I don't know if he'd be interested or not, but that's just a name that I've been told. Excuse me, in the past. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Brian Wilbur, our lead commissioner, would want to take a step up. I mean, granted, he's got a couple more years himself. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Moni?
No, it's above my pay grade. Of course, I don't make anything. So.
No, I mean, those are just some of the names that come to mind. I mean, like I said, I don't know, but I definitely think that Ron Marquez would make a great assistant commissioner or commissioner if he goes that route. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. They're going to be stepping into a good, really awesome position, in my opinion. There's been nothing but high respect to the San Diego section since both Labita and Jerry Schneep have taken over. They've made it a more approachable office, because I mean, you could call them anytime during the day and somebody will be in the office and you can talk to them, or you can go there and walk in and somebody will be there. So I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and when they open up the job, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people to apply, probably.
Well, look, I mean, you're not going to make fans of everybody when you're the commissioner, but obviously Schneep has the confidence and the leader and the experience that everyone will probably end up, respecting the job that he did over the years. And no matter what happens, I think he will go down as someone who kind of, I don't know. This has been a weird era of our lives over these years, over these 8 or 9 years that he's been in there, and from our perspective, how the media is blown up. I think that's just how you and I are looking at it, because we have to work with this office a little bit to get credentialed and whatnot. So and participating on all of those committees that we do with those, with the voting, which is important because these guys, these athletes get official awards based on the recommendations of media members and coaches. So it is important. And, he oversees all that and kind of organizes it. That's the least of his important duties, but still something that we get a chance to see him each week.
Yeah, I mean, the fact, like I said, obviously they're going to have to be, again, social media tech savvy. And I think that, I think Jerry and John, they're not 100% the best, but you know what? They embrace it. And that's what I think the next people have to do. They have to embrace it, whether it be the online ticketing service, to the streaming of all the events, to obviously, tweet, the CIF social media pages.
Yep. And great point here, Adam. Listen, one of the things that probably one of the most high profile things the commissioner does is all these things that they have to do, man. I mean, all these things from all these sports. Don't forget, talking about all these sports from football all the way to, I don't want to put it, let's just pick maybe the newest sport. So we're not, I think, competitive cheerleading, right? So all these sports, they have to oversee all of that. And the most high profile thing that eventually he gets criticism or in trouble or critiqued for is the playoff format. I mean, really, who cares, right? But let's just say this about what Mr. Schneep has done. He went to the teams, he went to the coaches and said, what do you guys want? What do you want? They voted. They voted almost unanimously in favor of this current system that really is receiving a lot of heat. It's the coaches that put it in place, saying, you know what, take average margin of victory out and just use straight the schedule and win-loss only. And I don't know if Schneep and Labetta and other people, like maybe media people, said, you know what, I don't know if you want to do that, because now look at the situation we're in. I don't know if we're going to get the right teams in there.
Right.
Maybe we are. It's supposed to kind of settle out in the end, and I kind of trust it will. But whenever people talk about, the playoff, the open thing, look, to me, closing it down to 4 teams, looks like a stroke of genius right now. Granted, there might be 5 or 6 teams this year. Maybe one of them's going to get left out, but there's not 8 teams that can compete probably on those given 2 games.
Right.
It would take maybe 1 out of every 10 games they could compete. So you got to throw some luck factor in there. So,
sure.
It worked for college football. I think it worked I don't think they'll change, necessarily on that. So, thanks a lot, Coach Schneep. I'll call him. He was a longtime coach of the Highlanders in our district and things like that. So back in the day, great baseball coach, great baseball player as well. So, all right, Adam, an hour and a half. I think nobody's going to probably watch it all the way, but I appreciate you giving me all this information. It makes my job a lot easier. Blame us for not getting to some of those games, that we'd like to try to go to every game, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. I mean, we don't have enough guys. We don't have enough yous and me's and other guys that are our friends to get out to all these games sometimes. And, we don't hear from you. Don't post your stats. That's what makes it kind of difficult. We're happy to report on all these games. So, okay, man. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the game this week. Enjoy the Sultans and the Monarchs. And I'm going to be at the Battle for the Hammershaw helmet, I believe, unless things change. Last week I was, supposed to go to a game, I think a Grossmont Conference game, and I ended up going to Cathedral Catholic in Madison. So see what happens. I mean, I probably would have tried to go to that other game. I know there's other games played, but sometimes I look at it and I say, which game isn't being covered? I'll just go there. I can trust I've got a guy here. I got this guy wants to go to the big game. I love going to the big games, and believe me, I'd rather. But sometimes you and we got to bite the bullet. We got to make sure we get covered. So sometimes we go to a game that maybe isn't the best game, but still going to be a good game, that type of thing. So, and when you get taken out, I got taken out of the East County, and that sucked. But all right, man. See you next week, Adam Paul. That's EC _ preps _ SD, right?
Yep.
All right. I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us.